Adding to the present Palestine troubles, more illegal immigrant ships arrive in Haifa harbor. On board, cargoes of refugees take their first look at the land they are determined to enter at any cost.
They attacked us inside there. All the young people inside are suffering, she says. Around 400 arrested and dozens injured, according to Palestinians, and Israeli troops on high alert.
In a land where history echoes through ancient stones and faith intertwines with daily life, an unforeseen event has sent shockwaves across religious divides and wiped out any potential peace discussions in the region. Israel, with its geographical and strategic importance, is on a daring quest to resurrect a long-forgotten tradition and awaken the echoes of ancient virtues. The ripples of these actions have surged through the very foundations of the religious community, leaving a trail of shock in their wake. But what exactly is this horrifying new thing happening in Israel that destroys all potential for peace? And what consequences do they hold for the future of the world's three most powerful religions? New details have also been recently leaked about Israel's proposed Third Temple that's been challenged for decades. Will Israel forge ahead and bar the consequences? Join us as we uncover what just happened in Israel that has shocked all religious people. History of Israel. Facing a difficult choice, Israel is unable to move between sticking to a religious duty from God and keeping good relations with nearby countries for peace. This long-lasting problem has sparked arguments all over the Middle East, leading to violent clashes and different views on sacred texts and prophecies. Interestingly, despite its small size, Israel holds immense geographical and strategic importance. Situated at the center of Asia, Africa, and Europe, its unique location has played an essential role in shaping its history and continues to influence its path forward. To the north, Lebanon shares its border, while Syria lies to the northeast. Jordan stands to the east, and Egypt borders its southwestern side. Covering over 8,500 square miles, Israel is home to 9 million citizens, a diverse blend of cultures where Jews form the majority and Arabs constitute the largest minority. About 2000 BC, Abraham, often called the father of three major religions, journeyed from Hanan to Canaan. In 1800 BC, Jacob, also known as Israel, Isaac's son, was born. His offspring became the children of Israel. These tribes settled in Canaan, a land controlled by Egypt. About 1,000 years before now, the Israelite tribes united under King Saul, making a big deal known as the United Monarchy. After King David took over, he made Jerusalem the capital, and his successor, King Solomon, built the first temple on the Temple Mount. This temple wasn't just a place to pray, it was the main spot for all the special sacrifices and a sign of the deal between God and the Jewish people. But things changed after Solomon's time. The kingdom split into a northern part and a southern part. The northern part, called the Kingdom of Israel, was taken over by the Assyrians in 721 BCE, and lots of people had to leave. Later, the Babylonians conquered the southern part, called the Kingdom of Judah, in 586 BCE, and they destroyed the first temple. This kicked off the Babylonian banishment, a time when many people from Judah were taken to Babylon. But when the Persians took over from the Babylonians, Cyrus the Great said the banished Jews could go back home and rebuild their temple. That's when the Second Temple era began. After the 1st century CE, Christianity popped up in the region, with Jesus of Nazareth doing his preaching thing there. Then, in 70 CE, the Romans took down the Second Temple during the Jewish-Roman War. The ancient history of Israel is a big mix of religious stories and things dug up by archaeologists. All these tales and happenings have made a huge impact on the Jewish people's cultural, religious, and historical identity, and they've left a mark on the whole wide world. In the 1920s and 1930s, a group of Jewish people moved to Palestine to find safety. Now, you need to see this. Aliyah period. Against the background of anti-Semitism and oppression in Europe, a large group of people moving to a new place, known as Aliyah, happened, reshaping the population composition of Palestine. This movement, driven by the Zionist goal of establishing a Jewish homeland, activated rising tensions with the Arab population. The growing inflow of Jewish immigrants and the formation of settlements increased awareness among Arabs, fearing a loss of their land and political rights. The Arab leaders noticed this as a risk to their national identity, culture, and dreams of self-determination. As tensions increased, aggressive clashes began between Jewish and Arab communities. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion, head of the Jewish Agency and future Prime Minister of Israel, declared the Israeli Declaration of Independence.
אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל. היא מדינת ישראל.
This historic document officially marked the establishment of the State of Israel. Ben-Gurion highlighted the profound historical link between the Jewish people and the land of Palestine, emphasizing the need for a Jewish state as a refuge from historical suffering and oppression, notably during the Holocaust. The declaration acknowledged the significance of a United Nations General Assembly resolution from November 29, 1947. Recommending the partition of Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. It expressed gratitude for the international recognition and support received. Israel, often known as the Holy Land, holds a special place in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Jerusalem, its capital, is one of the world's most sacred and contested cities, connected with events and figures mentioned in religious texts, adding to its historical and religious significance. Wait. To understand this video, you need to know the significance of Jerusalem. The significance of Jerusalem to all three religions. Jerusalem, a city overflowing with spiritual and historical importance, holds a special place in Judaism as the heartland of the Jewish people. It's deeply tied to Jewish tradition, with over 600 mentions in the Hebrew Bible. Once upon a time, the ancient Jewish temples stood tall on the Temple Mount. The Western Wall, also known as the Wailing Wall, is a powerful symbol for Jews everywhere. It's a piece of the ancient wall that surrounded the Second Temple's courtyard, now a cherished spot for prayer, pilgrimage, and reflection. For Christians, Jerusalem might not have the same long history, but it's crucial because it's linked to Jesus Christ. Many believe it's where Jesus was crucified, buried, and resurrected. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem is an important Christian site, thought to be where Jesus was crucified. Other important spots include the Mount of Olives, where Jesus ascended to heaven, and the Garden of Gethsemane, where he prayed before his arrest. Jerusalem pops up a lot in the New Testament, playing a central role in Jesus' teachings and ministry. In Islam, Jerusalem, also known as Al-Quds, is the third holiest city after Mecca and Medina. According to the Quran, the Prophet Muhammad had a miraculous journey from Mecca to Jerusalem, meeting various prophets along the way, including Abraham, Jesus, and Moses. Then, he ascended to heaven to receive the 5 daily compulsory prayers. This extraordinary event is remembered and honored in the Quran in a chapter called Al-Isra, marking an important moment in Islamic history. Beyond that, the Al-Aqsa Mosque in the Old City of Jerusalem is super important in Islam. Lots of important prophets like Abraham, David, Solomon, and Jesus are all tied to the religious history of Jerusalem. The Dome of the Rock, a shiny golden dome, is another iconic symbol in the compound. While Jerusalem is a mega city for these three religions, it's also seen its fair share of religious and political tension. It's like a mix of ancient history and today's reality. Jews, for instance, have had a tough time finding a place to worship since the first and second temples were destroyed. Worshipping at temples and synagogues is a big deal for them, and they even want to build a third temple, but making that happen is trickier than they thought. Jerusalem shows how complicated it is to balance religious beliefs, historical stuff, and the real world. It's a city that keeps reminding everyone that finding peace, understanding, and coexisting needs some careful juggling. With all its layers of faith, history, and dreams, Jerusalem keeps the conversation going, urging folks from different religions and cultures to find common ground. Now, you've understood the importance of Jerusalem. Here comes the challenges. The challenges. The idea of building a new temple in Israel is a big deal, filled with challenges both practical and based on beliefs. The site planned for the third temple is super important, known as the Temple Mount, or Haram al-Sharif in Islam. This spot has a long history of being a place of both deep religious connection and conflict. It's home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of Islam's holiest sites, and the Dome of the Rock, a famous symbol of Jerusalem. Trying to build a new Jewish temple here is sure to face strong opposition, not just from the Muslim world, but also from those worried about the region's stability. One major difficulty comes from the mix of religious beliefs and expectations tied to constructing the third temple. Many devoted Jews want to rebuild it because it's linked to their religious texts and traditions going back a super long time. They see it as making old prophecies come true and bringing spiritual redemption. But not everyone in the Jewish community agrees on when and how it should happen. Some say it should only be done when the Messiah shows up, while others want to start building right away. Beyond religious stuff, there are real-world problems to solve. The Temple Mount isn't just a religious place, it's also a big deal politically and culturally. Jews see it as their land, but Muslims strongly disagree. The Dome of the Rock, a holy Muslim spot, sits right there, and Jews have been kept away for a long time. However, a British archaeologist named Robert Hamilton found evidence of old Jewish cleansing sites in the area, backing up Jewish claims. This discovery got the Sanhedrin, a Jewish religious council formed again in 2004, taking steps to rebuild the Third Temple. The Sanhedrin is also doing other things, like preparing the Kohanim, the priestly group in Jerusalem, who are descendants of Aaron, Moses' brother. Even though they can't do all their traditional duties without the temple, they still have an important role in Jewish communities and religious ceremonies. There's a lot to work out, from the authority of the Sanhedrin to worries about the environment. But the idea of reconstructing the temple is stirring up conversations and preparations in various corners. Moreover, making a red heifer for purification sacrifices presents an unparalleled challenge. These red heifers, crucial for certain ceremonies, are now extinct. The Sanhedrin, a Jewish religious council, is on a quest to bring them back using red Angus. As a starting point, Rabbi Chaim Richmond and Reverend Clyde Lott are trying out animal husbandry techniques to create a red heifer adhering to specific breeding rules. Currently, 5 red heifers are in Israel, kept secret until they mature for the ceremony. To perform the red heifer ceremony, Rabbi Shach Mahmoud suggests doing it on the Mount of Olives, where there's a direct view of where the temple once stood. He estimates it might happen around Passover 2024 or possibly Shavuot 2024. But there's a catch. Security concerns add an extra layer of complexity. Recent tensions in the Middle East, especially between Israel and Palestine, make the situation more challenging. A surprise attack by Al-Qassam Brigades, Hamas's armed wing, has further increased security worries, adding to the already complicated dynamics in the region. Archaeological preservation is another hindrance. The Temple Mount holds layers of history underneath, with artifacts dating back to various periods, including the Second Temple era. Any construction work must delicately balance religious aspirations with scientific inquiry to preserve these historical treasures. On the international stage, Jerusalem's status, including the Temple Mount, has been a quarrelsome issue. Various resolutions and agreements, like the Oslo Accords, have tried to address this matter. Unilaterally building a new temple could have significant implications for regional stability and international relations. Considering the broader geopolitical context, Israel's relationships with neighboring Arab countries are sensitive. The construction of the Third Temple might impact regional peace efforts and alliances. Extremist groups could exploit this construction for their agendas, potentially increasing tensions and violence in the region. Beyond practical challenges, there are deep ethical and moral considerations. Respecting the rights and aspirations of all individuals and communities involved is crucial. Finding a path forward that acknowledges the diversity of beliefs and values in this contested space is essential. The journey toward building the Third Temple involves navigating a complex landscape filled with historical, geopolitical, and ethical challenges. We are at a crossroads. Now imagine the present situation, the current situation. The situation around building the Third Temple is quite intense. Right now, the Jewish people are sure about the huge historical and religious importance of making this temple happen. They're all in, believing in prophecies written in the Hebrew Bible around 2,600 years ago. These prophecies, found in Daniel 9 verse 24 to 27 and Daniel 12 verse 1, verse 11 to 12, have different meanings depending on who you ask. Daniel 9 verse 24 to 27 talks about a thing called the 70 weeks prophecy. It's kind of like a mysterious timeline, and people interpret it in different ways. It mentions 70 weeks or 77s, and some folks see it as a countdown to events related to the Third Temple. There's also talk about rebuilding Jerusalem and the sanctuary, and it gets pretty deep. Verse 26 talks about an anointed one, and who that is causes some debate. Some think it's the Messiah. Then, in Daniel 12 verse 1, verses 11 to 12, there's talk about the abomination of desolation and a stretch of 1,290 days. Some think these verses connect to the Temple Mount and the future Third Temple. The abomination thing is seen as a super disrespectful act that messes with a holy place, like the Temple Mount. Different groups and scholars have their takes on these prophecies, and talking about them can stir up some pretty heated debates. These discussions have even played a role in religious and political debates about the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. It's like a puzzle with lots of pieces, and everyone's trying to figure out how they fit together. Numerous international peacemakers have played crucial roles in talking things out between Israel and the Palestinians. These peacemakers can be countries, groups, or even big organizations. Their goal is to help everyone get along and make agreements on different topics, including the Temple Mount and the possible building of the Third Temple. The United States has been a big-time peacemaker in the Israeli-Palestinian situation. American diplomats have done a lot of shuttling around, bringing everybody to the table for talks and negotiations. They played a key part in making important deals like the Oslo Accords in the 1990s, which got everyone talking about tricky issues, including what to do with religious spots like the Temple Mount. The United Nations, UN, is also busy trying to make peace between Israel and the Palestinians. They've set up different groups and plans to help with talks and peacemaking. The UN's Special Coordinator for the Middle East peace process is like a middle person, working closely with everyone involved to find peaceful solutions. The European Union, EU, is another big player in helping sort things out. They're all about peaceful solutions and have backed projects that aim to get people talking and understanding each other better. The EU has given money and technical help to support peace-building efforts, and they've been right in the middle of talks on sensitive topics, like the Temple Mount. European diplomats are actively working to help everyone get along, pushing for mutual respect and peaceful coexistence. Everyone's pitching in to make sure the conversations keep going and that peaceful solutions become a reality. Countries nearby, like Jordan and Egypt, have played big roles in helping everyone talk things out. Jordan has a special link to the Temple Mount because they take care of the important Islamic sites in Jerusalem. They've been part of discussions and negotiations, using their position to encourage talking and keep the Temple Mount's religious importance intact. Egypt, too, has been busy resolving, using its diplomatic power in the region. People have come up with different ideas to make peace by building the third temple. One cool thought is sharing religious spaces, kind of like the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, which has been a Christian cathedral and a Muslim mosque at different times in history. Some individuals think the third temple could be built so both Jews and Muslims can worship there, creating a space where everyone's traditions can happily come together. Another way to make peace is through talks and agreements. Over the years, there have been a bunch of plans to settle the Israeli-Palestinian disagreement and figure out how to deal with touchy topics like the third temple. The Oslo Accords in the 1990s tried to set up talks between Israelis and Palestinians to make a peace deal. Even though these efforts have had their fair share of problems, they show that talking and negotiating can help sort out difficult issues. Everyone's giving it a shot, and even though it's tough, it's showing that there's potential for getting along through peace talk. In the last 10 years, there have been some cool instances of people working together to take care of religious spots. These instances could teach us how to figure out the building of the third temple. One standout moment is when Israel and Jordan decided to team up and look after the Temple Mount Haram al-Sharif spot in Jerusalem. Even though there's been some history of not getting along and arguing over claims, Israel and Jordan found a way to share the place. It's like they set up a deal that lets both sides use it. This way of working together shows it's possible to find common ground and live peacefully side by side. Getting people from different faiths to talk and understand each other is another way to make things work. When religious leaders, smart thinkers, and regular folks from different beliefs get together, they can talk openly. These discussions help everyone share their views and find things they all agree on. Right now, with the war happening between Israel and Palestine, it's super important to have talks and peaceful negotiations, especially when dealing with sensitive issues like building the third temple. We know finding a way to get along is not easy. It's like walking on a tightrope, balancing religious, political, and diplomatic stuff. But to make peace, everyone needs to commit to finding things they agree on and living together in peace. It's a sensitive road, but it's the way to go for a better future. What are your thoughts about the sensitive situation in Israel? Let us know in the comments below.